The desert stretched far and endless, its sand glowing under a cruel sun. Each grain burned like fire, and the wind carried only heat and silence. No life was there, no bird, no shadow, only a broken figure crawling slowly across the ground. She was an alien woman, her skin pale blue, cracked from thirst. Her lips trembled as she whispered the same words again and again. "Bury me here. I am not breeding material. I am not worth anything." Her voice was faint, but her pain was louder than any storm. Her fingers dug into the sand as if she was already digging her grave. She wanted the earth to swallow her. She wanted the desert to cover her body so no one would see her shame. Her knees scraped against sharp stones, her body thin and weak. Her eyes closed halfway, ready to surrender to the silence. But then, a shadow fell across her face. A voice deep and steady broke the burning silence. "No one gets buried today," it said. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the sun. A man stood over her, his boots dusty, his face covered with a scarf against the heat. He was human, tall and strong, with tired eyes that still carried a strange light. She coughed and tried to turn away. "Leave me, I am not worth saving, I am not breeding material, I failed. Just bury me here." Her words cracked with every breath. Her body shook as if even her bones wanted to give up, but the man did not move. He crouched beside her, offering his canteen. "Drink," he said firmly. "You will not die here, not like this." His tone was not soft. It was hard, like stone. Yet behind it there was something else. Something she had not heard in years. Care. Her hands refused. She pushed the canteen away weakly. "I am broken," she whispered. "My people rejected me. I have no use. I cannot give life, so I do not deserve life." Her words were sharp, but her eyes showed only emptiness. The man sighed and pulled her hand up himself, pressing the canteen against her lips. Water touched her mouth, cool, clean, and real. She gasped as it slid down her throat. For a moment her body fought it, then it begged for more. She drank, coughing, but she drank. Her eyes widened in shock as if her own body betrayed her wish to die. He did not let go. He made her drink again, then gave her bread from his pack. "Eat," he said. She shook her head, crumbs falling from her dry lips. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you waste this on me?" The man looked at her, his eyes narrowing against the sun. "Because you are alive. That is reason enough." She stared at him as if he had spoken madness. No one had ever said those words to her. Her own people had called her useless. Her masters had called her waste. But this stranger, this human, spoke as if her life carried value without condition. Tears stung her cracked eyes, but she quickly turned her face away. "You don't understand," she said weakly. "I was trained for one purpose. I could not give it. So I was thrown away. My life ended then." Her voice broke, raw with shame. The man set down his pack and slowly lifted her up from the sand. She was light as if made of paper. Her body shook against his arm. "Your life is not theirs to throw away," he said quietly. "It belongs to you, not to them." His words struck her like a storm. She wanted to reject them, to scream, but her throat was too weak. Only silence came out. Inside her chest, a strange ache grew, one she did not understand. As he carried her toward the shade of a broken dune, she closed her eyes. Her last thought before sleep was not of death, but of confusion. Who was this man, and why did he fight so hard for someone who begged to be buried? The desert wind howled behind them, covering her shallow grave. The sand erased the place where she had crawled, as if the earth itself had chosen not to bury her. For the first time in years, she was not alone. For the first time, she wondered if her story had not ended but only begun. The alien woman woke slowly, her throat still dry but no longer burning. Her body rested against a blanket that smelled of smoke and earth. For a moment she thought she had died, but then she saw the fire, the water skin, and the man sitting near her. He was sharpening a small knife, his back to her, His movements were calm, steady, like someone who had walked the desert many times before. He looked like a man who had faced storms and never bent. She tried to sit, but pain pulled her down again. He turned his head and spoke without surprise. "Stay down. Your body is too weak. Rest." His voice was not soft, but it carried no cruelty. Her lips moved, her voice cracked. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you not leave me there? I asked you to bury me. I begged you. You should have listened." The man placed the knife back in his belt. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much yet still carried fire. "I do not leave people to die in the sand," he said. "You begged me." "Yes, but I refused." She stared at him, disbelief filling her eyes. "You don't understand. I am nothing. My own people cast me out. They told me I was useless. I cannot breed. I cannot give them children. I am broken." Her voice shook, sharp with shame. The man leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Maybe they call you useless, maybe they call you broken, but you are alive. And as long as you are alive, you are not nothing." Her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. "You speak as if my life matters. It does not. My worth was judged and denied." His jaw tightened. He picked up the water skin and placed it in her hands. "Drink again," he said, "if your life was worthless. Why are you still fighting inside? Your body still drinks. Your heart still beats. That is not nothing. That is survival." She pressed the water to her lips, but this time not out of hunger or thirst. She drank slowly, her mind heavy with his words. For years no one had spoken to her like this. No one had seen her as more than a failed role. The fire cracked between them. The desert night was cold now, sharp wind cutting across the sand. She pulled the blanket tighter, but the cold inside her heart was worse. He spoke again, his voice low. "What is your name?" She hesitated. "Lyra," she whispered. "Though it means nothing now." He nodded. "Lyra," he repeated, as if testing the sound. "I am Daniel." The silence stretched. Then Lyra asked, "Why do you care, Daniel? You do not know me. I am not from your kind. I'm not from your world." He looked up at the stars. "Because someone once saved me when I thought I was nothing," he said. His eyes did not move from the sky. "I was left behind in a war. They thought I would die. A stranger pulled me out. They gave me a chance. I swore I would do the same. If I ever found another soul ready to give up." His words struck her heart. A human, broken once, just like her. Yet he still carried strength. He still chose to fight for life. Lyra turned her face away. "You don't know my curse. I bring only shame. I am a burden." Daniel stood and walked toward her. His shadow covered her as he crouched beside her. "Burden or not, I will not throw you away," he said. His voice was hard like iron. "If you want death, you will have to fight me for it," she gasped softly. Her body trembled not from cold but from something else, something strange. His refusal broke her walls in ways no cruelty ever did. He placed a piece of dried meat near her hands. "Eat," he said. "Tomorrow we move. You will not stay buried in this desert." Her lips trembled. Her fingers touched the food but did not lift it. She looked at him with wide, wet eyes. "Why? Do you fight so hard for me?" she whispered. "What do you want from me?" Daniel's face hardened. "Nothing," he said. "I want nothing from you. I do not save lives for a price." Lyra froze. Her heart beat louder in her ears. No master had ever said that, no captor, no kin, no one. She had always been a tool, a thing. But this man spoke as if she was simply a life. And that was enough. The fire burned low, the desert howled outside. Lyra curled under the blanket, her body shaking with emotions she could not name. Daniel sat, awake, watching the stars. His hand rested on his knife, guarding her from the night. And Lyra, for the first time in many seasons, felt a whisper of safety. She closed her eyes, not with the wish to die, but with the smallest fragile spark of hope.
The morning sun rose heavy and red, sand shifted in the wind, and the desert hummed with heat once again. Daniel packed his small bag, tying ropes tightly as if every knot was a promise. Beside him, Lyra sat weak but awake, her eyes lowered, her hands hidden inside the blanket. She had eaten only a little through the night. Her body still shook with hunger, but her mind refused to accept kindness easily. She kept hearing his words. "Your life is not theirs to throw away." They echoed like a sound she could not silence. Daniel handed her a strip of cloth to wrap around her head against the sun. She hesitated before taking it. "You treat me as if I am worth something," she said slowly, "but you do not know who I am." He tightened the straps of his pack and glanced at her. "Then tell me," he said simply. "If you carry chains, speak of them. Do not let them choke you in silence." Lyra's lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. Pain pressed against her chest. She wanted to stay quiet, but his steady eyes pulled truth out of her. "I was born in a breeding camp," she whispered at last. Her voice was dry like the desert wind. "Our kind keeps women there for one purpose, to produce strong children. If you fail, you are cast away." Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket tighter. "When I was tested, I failed. They said my body could not carry life. They branded me useless, broken, not fit to serve the clan. I was dragged from the hall and thrown into the dirt. The chains were taken from my wrists, not out of mercy, but because I was no longer worth guarding." Her voice cracked as the memories bled out. "Others spat on me, some laughed. They called me empty vessel. They told me even my grave would be wasted space. Since that day I have walked only with shame. When I asked you to bury me, it was because I was already dead long ago." Daniel listened in silence. His jaw clenched, but he did not interrupt. His eyes burned not with pity, but with anger, not toward her, but toward those who had broken her. Lyra wiped her eyes quickly, ashamed of the tears. "You see now," she said bitterly, "I am not worth your water, not your bread. I am not worth your steps in the sand." Daniel knelt down in front of her. His shadow fell across her as he spoke. "You are wrong," he said firmly. "You are not broken. They are. They chained you, judged you, and threw you away. That does not mean you have no worth. It means they were blind to see it." Lyra's breath caught. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to argue, but the words would not come. He held out his hand, rough with scars. "Walk with me," he said. "Do not let them bury you here. Do not give them victory over your spirit." Her eyes stared at his hand for a long time. The desert wind whipped against her face. Memories of chains and shame weighed her shoulders, yet in his hand she saw something she had never been offered before. Choice. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his. His grip was strong but careful, not pulling, only steadying. They began to walk together across the dunes. The sand burned their feet, the sun hammered them, but Daniel walked as if the desert had no power. His steps were steady, and his strength seemed endless. Lyra leaned on him at first, but step by step she forced herself to move on her own. As the hours passed, she whispered, "Daniel." He turned his head, waiting. She hesitated, then said, "When I was chained, I used to dream that someone would see me. Not as a vessel, not as a failure, but as me. Only a dream until now." Daniel said nothing, but his silence carried more than words. His presence itself was an answer. By nightfall, they reached the remains of an old ruin, half buried in sand. Broken stone walls stood like teeth, offering shelter from the desert winds. Daniel built a small fire, while Lyra sat close, her hands open to the warmth. The firelight danced across her face. For the first time since he found her, she did not look only like a dying shadow. She looked alive, fragile, but alive. She turned her gaze to him. "Do you believe I can be more than what they said I am?" she asked softly. Her voice trembled, almost afraid of the answer. Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and fierce. "Yes," he said. "I believe it more than they ever believed their lies." Lyra closed her eyes, and tears slid down her cheeks, not from shame this time, but from a strange, aching relief. For the first time in her life, she let herself believe the possibility that she was not broken. That night, as the fire burned low, Lyra lay awake under the blanket. Her chains were gone long ago, but tonight for the first time she felt the weight begin to leave her spirit too. And Daniel, watching over her, knew this was only the beginning. Her past was heavy, but her future had just opened a door. The fire in the ruins had turned to ash by morning. Daniel rose early, his body moving with the habit of survival. He checked the horizon, scanning for movement, but the desert gave no sign of life, only endless sand and a sky painted in pale gold. Lyra stirred from her blanket, her body still weak but stronger than the night before. She blinked at him, surprised to find him already awake. "You do not sleep," she said quietly. He shrugged, adjusting the strap of his pack. "I sleep enough. I watch, so you can rest." Her chest tightened at his words. No one had ever stayed awake for her. No one had guarded her when she was too weak to guard herself. It was strange, almost painful to feel safe. Daniel handed her a piece of dried fruit. "Eat slowly," he said. Lyra took it in her hands, staring at it for a long moment. She wanted to ask why again. Why he gave without asking anything in return, but the question always died on her lips. Perhaps because she feared the answer. They walked together through the ruins before leaving. The broken stones whispered of a city long gone. Lyra touched one of the carvings on the wall. Her fingers traced the faded lines of symbols she did not understand. For the first time in years, curiosity stirred inside her. Daniel watched her quietly. "There was life here once," he said. "Great life. Now the sand has covered it, but it still speaks if you listen." His words made her pause. She looked at him, then at herself. A thought burned in her chest. If ruins could still speak after centuries, maybe she could too. Maybe her life was not fully erased. They left the ruins behind, step by step. The desert tried to break them. The sun pressed heavy. The wind bit their faces. Lyra stumbled often, but Daniel's steady hand always reached her before she fell. At first she resisted, ashamed to lean on him, but slowly she stopped pulling away. His grip felt less like control and more like promise. By the time the sun began to sink, her lips carried something new. A small laugh, soft and quick. Daniel turned his head sharply. His brows rose as if the sound surprised him more than the desert storms. "What?" Lyra asked nervously. She pressed her hands to her mouth, afraid she had done something wrong. Daniel shook his head, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. "It has been many days since I heard laughter in this wasteland," he said. "Do not hide it. It suits you." Lyra froze, her heart racing. She felt heat rise to her face. Something inside her chest cracked open. The laugh had escaped without her will, but hearing him value it, it was like sunlight breaking through clouds. That night they built another fire beneath a sloping dune. Lyra sat closer to him than before. Her body was still thin, but she leaned into the warmth. She watched the flames and spoke softly. "Daniel." "Yes," he answered, poking the fire with a stick. "Do you ever wonder why you survived when others did not?" Her eyes shimmered in the glow. Daniel was quiet for a moment. His jaw tightened. "Every day," he admitted. "But maybe the answer is simple. I survived so I could help someone else survive." Her throat tightened. Her eyes dropped to the fire. She whispered, "And you chose me." Daniel looked at her directly. "Yes," he said without hesitation. The words struck her heart like thunder. She had been told all her life that she was not chosen, not worthy, not enough. But here was this man, choosing her not for use, not for gain, simply for life itself. She felt tears fall down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. She did not turn away this time. Instead, she let them fall. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I do not know how to thank you." Daniel shook his head. "Do not thank me. Just keep walking, keep living. That is enough." The desert night wrapped around them, but for the first time, Lyra did not feel swallowed by it. The firelight painted her face, and inside her chest something fragile began to grow. It was not yet strong, but it was there. Hope. The kind of hope that made her believe she might not be cursed. The kind that made her think maybe one day she could be more than chains, more than failure. When she closed her eyes that night, she did not whisper for death. She whispered only one word to herself, a word she had not dared to hold in her heart for years. Tomorrow. The desert night grew colder than stone. The fire crackled low, shadows dancing on the sand walls around them. Daniel sat sharpening his knife again, the rhythm steady, like the beating of a drum. Lyra sat across from him, her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes studied him in silence. For many days now, he had carried her through hunger, through heat, through endless dunes. His strength seemed carved from the desert itself. But tonight, for the first time, she wanted to know the man behind the silence. "Daniel," she whispered. Her voice trembled like a fragile branch in the wind. He looked up, his eyes calm. "Yes." "Why do you walk alone in this wasteland?" she asked. "Why is a human so far from his kind?" He did not answer right away. He laid the knife aside and stared at the fire. "Because my kind is gone," he said at last. His voice was steady, but there was a heaviness in it. Lyra tilted her head. "Gone," she repeated softly. He nodded. I was a soldier. We were sent to defend a colony against raiders. The battle was lost. My people fled. I was left behind. I fought until my brothers were gone, and then I walked, searching for any sign of home. I never found it." His words sank deep into her. She saw not just a strong man, but a lonely one. His scars were not only on his skin, but in his heart. "You were abandoned too," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. His eyes met hers. "Yes, but I lived. And I decided if I could not save my brothers, I would save whoever I could find on this road. That is my purpose now." Her chest tightened. A strange warmth grew inside her. Not pity, but recognition. They were both broken, both discarded, yet here they sat together, still breathing, still fighting. She pulled her blanket closer. "When you speak, I believe you," she said. "No one else ever made me believe before." Daniel leaned back against the stone, his face softened. "That is because I do not speak lies." The silence between them grew heavier, not uncomfortable, but thick with unspoken feelings. The fire painted his features in gold and shadow. His eyes seemed gentler in the glow. For the first time, she saw not just a rescuer, but a man carrying pain of his own. The next day, they continued walking. The dunes stretched high, wind sweeping sharp across their faces. Lyra stumbled, but she forced herself not to fall. Daniel slowed his steps to match hers. He did not carry her this time. He let her walk, letting her strength grow. When they rested, she shared pieces of her story she had never told aloud. The chains, the scorn, the cruel words that still echoed in her mind. Daniel listened, not with pity but with patience. His silence told her that he understood what it meant to carry pain that words could never fully explain. That evening, while searching for water near a cracked ravine, Daniel found a small spring hidden beneath rocks. Lyra's eyes widened when he showed her. The clear water reflected the starlight like silver. She bent down to drink, but her hands shook. Daniel steadied her, his hand covering hers. The touch was small, simple, but it sent a shiver through her. No one had ever touched her without force, without demand. This was different, gentle, steady, respectful. She looked at him, and for the first time she smiled. Not forced, not broken, but real. Daniel's eyes softened. He did not smile often, but he nodded as if her smile was enough to light the night. Later, as they sat by the fire, Lyra whispered, "Daniel, do you ever think we survive for a reason?" He poked the flames with a stick, sparks rising into the air. "Yes," he said. "I think the reason is sitting right in front of me." Her breath caught, her chest ached. She turned her face away quickly, hiding the tears in her eyes, but her heart beat fast, strong, alive. The night grew quiet, the desert wind softened. For the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel like a failure. For the first time she felt chosen, not rejected. Their bond was no longer just survival. It was becoming something deeper, something that reached into wounds neither had shown the world. The desert had tried to bury them, but together they were finding a spark of life, a spark that could one day become a flame. The desert was never quiet for long. Daniel felt it before he saw it. The stillness of the dunes was broken by faint tracks. In the sand, wide and deep, he crouched low, touching the prints with his hand, his face hardened. "What is it?" Lyra asked. Her voice trembled. Daniel's eyes lifted to the horizon. "Hunters," he said. "Not far. They travel with machines, the same kind who left you to die." Her chest froze. Memories stabbed her heart like knives. She could almost hear their laughter, the voices that called her useless. Her breath quickened. "They will kill me if they see me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, not while I stand." He grabbed her hand, pulling her into the shadow of a tall dune. They crouched low as the wind carried the faint hum of engines. On the horizon, dark figures moved, riding broken skimmers, weapons strapped to their sides. Dust swirled in their wake. Lyra pressed close to him, her body shaking. "Daniel," she whispered, "you should leave me. They want me, not you." Daniel turned sharply, his voice hard. "Never say that again. I do not abandon those under my protection." Her throat tightened. His words struck deep, stronger than any chain. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes silenced her. The hunters stopped near the ruins they had left behind. Their voices carried faintly across the sand, harsh and cruel. Daniel pulled Lyra down lower. His hand stayed on his knife, his other arm steady around her shoulders. She could feel his heartbeat, calm but strong. Hours passed like shadows. When the sun dipped low, the hunters moved on, leaving dust and silence. Daniel waited longer. Only when he was sure they were gone did he rise. "We must move quickly," he said. "They will return." They walked through the darkening desert, stars blooming above them. Lyra's legs trembled with exhaustion, but she forced herself forward. Each step was heavy, but Daniel's steady presence beside her gave her strength. When her knees finally buckled, he lifted her into his arms. She wanted to protest, but her voice failed. His arms felt unshakable, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. She rested. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "If you had listened to me, if you had buried me there, none of this would exist. I would not be here. This child would not be here." Her hand pressed gently too. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "If you had listened to me, if you had buried me there, none of this would exist. I would not be here. This child would not be here." Her hand pressed gently to her stomach. "You gave me more than life. You gave me a family." Daniel looked at her, his face strong but his eyes soft. He reached and brushed a strand of her silver blue hair away from her face. "I only did what was right," he said quietly. But Lyra shook her head, tears streaming down. "No, you did more than that. You proved I was not worthless. You proved I was more than chains. You made me believe again." She leaned into him, and for a long time they sat in silence, the sound of the river whispering around them. Weeks later, the night came when the child was born. The small shelter glowed with firelight. Lyra's cries filled the air, her pain sharp but her spirit unbroken. Daniel never left her side, his hand gripping hers, his voice steady, guiding her through each breath. At last, when the cries of the child rang out, strong and clear, Lyra collapsed back against the blankets. Tears of exhaustion streamed down her cheeks. But in her arms lay a tiny life, with skin touched by both their worlds, eyes shining with new light. She looked at the child, then at Daniel. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "A child of two worlds." Daniel's face softened as he leaned closer. His hand touched the small head gently. "A child of hope," he said. Lyra held the baby close to her chest. Her heart overflowed. She remembered the day she begged for burial, the day she called herself useless. And now here she was, holding proof that she was not broken, but whole. The days that followed were full of laughter and small struggles. The baby cried. The baby slept. Daniel built stronger walls. Lyra sang soft songs. For the first time in her life, her days were not measured by pain, but by love. Sometimes she stood at the doorway of their home, the valley spread before her. She would whisper to herself, "I asked for a grave, but life gave me a family instead." Daniel would come stand behind her, wrapping his arm around her, his voice steady as always. "And that family will never be taken from you." The world outside was still harsh. Hunters still roamed the sands, storms still rose, but inside their small valley, inside their small home, hope lived. Stronger than any storm, their child grew, laughing under the sunlight, half human, half alien, but wholly loved. And Lyra, once cast out, once buried in shame, now walked with her head high. Her scars were still there, but they were no longer chains. Her life was proof that despair could turn into light, that even in the cruelest deserts, a spark of hope could grow into flame. And as Daniel watched mother and child together, he knew his vow had been kept. He had refused to bury her, and in that refusal, he had given birth not only to new life but to a new future.